This is Steve.
And this is Shawn.
This is Acro Media's High Five.
So, Steve, what are we going to talk about?
You wanted to talk about performance, and
You don't particularly, or
I don't know. I don't think it's that important.
is it a sensitive subject for you?
No, it's not sensitive.
Okay.
I just, me and, maybe the rest of the populace don't quite understand, the value of performance. Maybe you want to enlighten us.
There's really standard statistics of like anything that takes longer than a second has a negative impact on people using the
1
site or
second.
not. It's 1 second. It's super short. Right? Like, it doesn't mean they will drop, but it's like after 1 second, there is a measurable decline.
So is this
Right.
like when I've seen your mom use a computer and she clicks like the next button and then it doesn't respond
And
immediately?
then next.
She starts double
like
clicking
7 more
it?
time.
Yeah.
And
Not
then
realizing
angry
it's
close browser, call me on the phone.
Yeah. I shouldn't have referred to actually seeing your mom doing that because I don't think I've actually seen your mom use a computer. But
I hope you haven't.
I'm sure it's not
You
that.
stay away from my mother.
But anyways, I can agree with you. Also working in retail for a long time. I know that the same kind of policy works when when someone comes in and they don't see what they're looking for within 7 seconds. I think that's what it is there. They pretty much have already made their decision. I know that online it's
basically a shortened version of that because there's less walking and looking around. It's like I have a screen in front of me. No, okay, give up.
Yeah.
Right. It's not always. I mean, some people will go through things for ages or whatever, but it's just you will get some decline and it gets worse as you go. And if you get over 5 seconds, it starts to really fall off.
So I imagine it's almost it's exponential to a certain extent because
it sort of is like a bit like a sort of reverse hockey stick one where it declines and then it will really start to plummet because you'll get a certain point where no one is interested. They assume the page is broken or not loading or something like that,
sure.
and everyone goes away, right?
So within within standard practice, you're talking about 1 second. Do we have a bit of like an average, like a Drupal average or a market average for commerce?
And there is a little more leeway in stuff like commerce.
Okay.
Like people expect checkouts and carts to take a little longer and stuff because they usually do. I mean, there's things like we have to connect off to the payment gateway. We have to see that your payment has been validated. That has to come back. That's going to take, even with a really nice API, that's going to take a little bit of time, right? So people know, oh, wait a second or two or something like that, right? They have a little more patience than browsing through catalogs and reading a blog. Plus, people, if they're buying something, oftentimes they have a little bit more investment in the activity, right? They need the thing that they're going to buy or whatever, right? Versus if they're just like reading a blog, they have no purpose for it, so they can give up immediately, right? If it's a news article or something like that. So you do have some more leeway there. But it's still dropping off, right? So if you can improve that, that's a thing you can fix.
So what are, maybe let's start at the top. What are like the most basic ways of helping your website's performance?
What's even sort of, and what we kind of I wanted to talk about a little bit in this episode is also even like what is your website's performance and like how should you be measuring and checking that or whatever, right? Which we're not even, we need kind of that first. Like it's like we talked about like a second. It's like how fast is your website loaded? It's like
and if you don't even know that, then you can't even talk about what you should be doing.
And going on it and just like clicking through some pages and sort of seeing how fast it loads isn't really a very good metric. You need more like stats of like over time what it is. Like in the morning maybe it's really fast. In the evening maybe when everyone's at home and they're shopping, it's not fast, right? And what is it? Or on weekends it's okay, and on weekdays it's bad, or vice versa, and stuff like that. And where are we hitting, basically over a certain threshold? When are we hitting over 5 seconds, over 3 seconds, stuff like that? And how often do you test that? And then even also, if you were to get twice as much traffic, then what happens, right? So like, performance testing, load testing for that. So it's like, okay, say if you had a big sale or you got, a big ad feature or something like that, and you get 4 times as much traffic, what happens? Does it go to 30 seconds?
Let's stop there. So what do you do? So let's hit that. So you are in that situation where you have fluctuating traffic, fluctuating performance. 2 things. How do we measure that? How do we know that's happening? Where do we find those stats? What do we do about it?
Yeah, 2 ways to measure it. Past performance, so when you've had events like that before, how did things perform? And then with performance testing, where you try to simulate the traffic you will get and you hit it with a whole bunch of traffic that you've sort of generated through some sort of testing framework. That's not perfect because it's not necessarily the same as the way users will browse, and it depends on your ability to sort of make it accurate. But it will give you something, right?
Okay.
If even a whole bunch of people just hitting the homepage causes it to like bog down, well, that's obviously a problem, right? Although you have to imagine people searching and people clicking through categories, people adding things to their cart, people checking out, that kind of stuff. And so you want to have, hey, how much at least can I burst and still be acceptable? And also, can you degrade gracefully? Like, does it maybe go to 5, 6, 7 seconds, but at least it doesn't crash, right? Because that's not great, but it's still better than no one gets anything, right? Some people get, a degraded experience versus,
no experience at all.
No experience at all, because no matter how patient they are, if they can't use their website, they're not going to buy anything.
If it's timing out, then that's just the way it is. Okay.
Yeah, and then as far as improving that, which you want to be doing well before you need to.
Sure, yes.
Hopefully, doing it on the fly.
Do some load testing, perhaps.
Yeah, doing it while it's happening can be really. I mean, you can still sometimes will do some stuff while it's happening, as you have things that were different than you're testing, right? And you might adjust.
You call
on the
up all
fly,
your friends and family and colleagues, and you have everyone spam the website at the same time. Is that how we test it?
If you use your friends, you're not load testing enough.
Okay.
Even if you have a lot of friends.
So
unless you have like 1 million Twitter followers or Instagram followers and you get all them to go, I don't think.
I only have like 200.
Yeah, that's not enough.
And I think that they're not even true 200. I think half of them are.
They're mostly bots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we can't use that as a way of testing, how do we test?
Well, you can use you just want to do that kind of stuff ahead of time, and you want to simulate it as much as you can. And so you want to try to mock traffic as best you can. You want to have it hit a variety of pages. You want to have it go through flows, add to carts, things like that, right? That will actually happen. If you just hit the homepage 1,000 times or whatever, the homepage caches. It's a really light operation. Adding to cart, applying discounts, calculating taxes, those are heavier options, and they are unique for every person. So you want to run a lot of that. So you want to run through various sort of flows you have, and then you basically just loop that, and you add a little bit of sort of randomness in it and stuff like that. So like, it won't go in you don't want your traffic to be perfectly smooth. You want it to sort of spike and drop and move around.
And you can simulate all that.
You can simulate all that, although it takes work, and to some extent it takes sort of a combination of sort of intuition and past data to say okay, what do we think is do people go to one page and then check out immediately, or do they browse 20? Do they search? Do they?
And you're going to know that from your analytics and your past purchases.
Yeah, so you look and you see sort of what your flow is, and then you try to simulate it. You're never going to be bang on, but you do that, and then you also keep these tests, and then you iterate on them and you improve on them, right? So if you see, oh, hey, we really missed this piece, then okay, well that was crummy, but fix your tests, and now the next time you have that, right, and you keep it going. And then this is the thing where you can even run these tests, every 2 weeks, or maybe even after every time you do a big launch or something like that, and be like, where are we now? Have we suddenly degraded, right?
So let's just say we're in a situation where we're coming up to an event. We're coming up to a Black Friday. We're coming up to something where we're gonna have a sale. We know that there's gonna be a peak amount of traffic at say midnight. And so we've done our load testing. We've done our simulations. We've been looking at our past data. We understand that traffic jumps up 200%. Yeah. So we've done the basic things. We've scaled the server. We've done that. What else should we be looking for? How do we make sure we're not going to go down on this Black Friday sale?
First of all, if you say you do 200 on Black Fridays, don't just test to 200, test to 300, 400, or whatever like that. Because if that doesn't give you any wiggle room if your test wasn't quite right. And also, what if you get 250? What if your Black Friday is a little more successful? Not even a lot, right? That's a fairly small increase. Like, heaven forbid it's 3, 4. You don't want to. That's tons of sales you could be making, right? So you definitely want quite a bit of leeway in there. And then you really have to make sure you don't have basically any areas of concern, so that when you run those tests...
And what do you mean by areas of concern, though?
Yeah, so anything that is really close to going poorly. Okay. So you can have certain thresholds where it goes fine to broken, right? Like fairly quickly. Like if suddenly you use up all your memory, and now it has to swap and use the hard drive, you'll go from everything's okay to everything's unworkable garbage in this threshold. So you don't want to be at 98%, right? Because your test might run fine, but then
as soon as you go over that tipping point, everything stops being
boom, right? And that's not an easy thing to fix in the middle of everything. So you want to even, like we said, test 300-400%. You also want to know where your failure is, right? So you basically keep testing until you blow it up, and you say, okay, here's where we blow up. Sure. Can we fix something there, and what is it that blows up? Or is it so far past that we're not too worried, right? It's 100 times the traffic we would ever get, and we don't anticipate ever getting that. We don't think it's worth putting the resources in.
Got it.
But you can have these, you might bottleneck on CPU, you might bottleneck on memory, network, storage, cache server space. There's all kinds of things, but you need to figure out where those are, hit the first one, hopefully resolve it, either by making your code more efficient or scaling that up or whatever needs, that's a whole other topic, is like all what you can do there. But,
Sure.
and then see what's the next one you hit or whatever, right, until you're at a really acceptable level, because you might hit one of those much sooner than you expect to hit.
Okay.
And if you can, you want to try to test that on something comparable to your live environment. Because if you test on a dev server or a staging server that is significantly different, those numbers aren't that valid.
That makes
right?
sense.
That does mean spinning up a whole production environment maybe to do some testing, but maybe you spin it up for a day, you run a whole bunch of load testing, you turn it back off. So, if you pay $5,000 a month for hosting, you're going to pay a 30th of that, right? To run some testing for a day, but it's worth it overall to do, because if you fake the test, sometimes you can do half of what you normally do. Like maybe if you have 4 web servers and 2 database servers and stuff like that, you run 2 and 1 or something like that, and it's pretty close and it's a bit more cost effective. But you don't want to run it like all on one small server when you have a totally different live setup, or like don't run the caching server when you do have a caching server, or whatever.
Makes sense. So what's today's too long didn't read? I know we've been covering a lot of how you should be planning to scale your performance.
Yeah, and because we were sort of talking about this, and what you should do monthly was kind of the original idea when we sort of thought of this topic. And it's just that you should know what your performance numbers are kind of all the time, right? Most certainly before you have any sort of peak event. But then also if something catches you, things can't catch you unaware as much, because sort of that you have some bandwidth.
Got it.
Because it might also be you get featured randomly on something or whatever, or something becomes popular, you don't know, right? So.
Yeah, we've actually run a line a few times.
Because it will be a horrible, stressful panic when it happens too.
And then you'll have 2 people looking over your shoulder while you try to...
And you will see dollars, or more importantly, your clients will see dollars just going away into thin air, right? Because they imagine every single person up getting to your site is hundreds of dollars of sales per person going away.
Yeah,
they're not
that'll
totally
never
wrong
come
either,
back.
right? Yeah, that are gone forever, when they're probably overreacting a little, but
nonetheless, their website is not working. And
there's a valid point behind there. Yeah.
Got it. If you'd like, subscribe to our channel. If you are curious or you want to know a little bit more about how we deal with performance, ask your questions or comment below.
Yeah, I believe we also do have a previous video talking more about fixing performance and doing stuff like that as well. Also, check out our blog on acromedia.com, follow us on Facebook, and follow me on Twitter.